Hey guys, I'm so excited to show you how I turned this boring dresser into this dresser. It only took a few pieces. I'll tell you what I bought, what I used, and exactly how I did it. So stick around. So I created this project for a customer that I had who had a boring dresser she wanted to give a little pizzazz to. She actually ordered a plain white dresser with 6 drawers from Lowe's, and I'll make sure and link that below. So the first thing I had to do was put the dresser together. As you all know, this part is super tedious, comes with a million parts. I probably could have built it faster. But this is definitely the most cost-effective direction to go for my customer with pricing the way that it is on lumber right now due to the pandemic. So as soon as I got the dresser all fixed up and built, drawers were in, they slid well, and it was time to start retrofitting a base. So one of the challenges with a project like this is that most of these dressers are made with particle board, and particle board splits apart if you ever tried to screw into it or change it, cut it, whatever. So I decided to create anchors on the bottom of the dresser with actual pine boards so that I had something to screw into. So I cut them to the width or depth of each leg, and then I decided I would go ahead and glue those to those particle board legs and clamped them down really good with my pony clamps. And the 2 outside ones I Craig jigged so that I could screw the 2 sides into the new base that I was building. So now that those pieces are Craig jigged, I'm going to go ahead and glue and clamp those to the end pieces. I had to be careful right here and make sure my pocket holes were facing the right direction so that I could screw down into the new base that I'll build. So I let those cure overnight and then got started on the base. Now for the base, I decided to go with 2x2s from Lowe's, 2x2x8 pieces. I bought 2 of those and decided to create the base. This is the exact same size as the base on the actual piece. I did add 1/4 inch depth to it so it would stick out a little bit on the front and the back, just to give it a little more sturdiness and to help with attaching any pieces around or trim molding that I might need. Then I used my Titebond one to go ahead and glue and screw these pieces in. I used my Craig jig as well here and just created a basic frame. Now, if you don't know what a Craig jig is or you have questions about pocket holes, make sure and check out a video that I did not too long ago on this very subject. I'll make sure and link it here. Next, I tried the base on to make sure it fit the way I wanted it to, and it looked good. I also took the time to space out the 2 middle legs that I'd be attaching to this base to make sure it was where I wanted it spaced. Next, I took a drill bit and screwed a little hole. Each of these legs came with a screw at the top. And so I was able to drill out a little spot and then glue and screw them into place. At this point here, I am not using glue. I'm just trying to dry fit each leg and make sure it fits where I want and how I want so that it'll glue together nicely in the end. After this initial dry fit, I decided I needed 1 more leg for that back spacing there to add to its sturdiness. And then it was time to stain. So I grabbed some Varathane Special Walnut and went ahead and stained the entire base and all the legs. And as usual, I'll make sure and post all the links in the description below of this video and on my website. Once the stain is all dry, it's time to glue and Craig jig screw the base to the actual dresser. So I'm using Titebond again, and then I used 1.5 inch Craig screws to screw up from the cleats that I created into the base. And then I added some glue to each leg and screwed it down into place as well. I used Power Grab glue for this portion of the build, and I gave it about an hour to cure, flipped it over, and replaced the drawers. Now you can see some gaps there at the bottom of the dresser, which normally would be left open. And since I've created the base, now there's a gap. So I decided to use a 1x2 pine piece to fill that space, and I just stained it and glued it into place. Next, we're on to the handles. Now, because I had a certain look that I was going for, the handles were a little bit tricky, but I did find some 1" by 1" dowels, square dowels, at Lowe's and at Home Depot, and they were perfect. So I grabbed 6 of them and brought them home, and I cut them to the width, which was about 22 inches wide. I wanted them to be really long and almost cover the entire drawer face. Then I also cut 2 1" square pieces to attach to each drawer handle. So in total, there were 12 of these little cubes. I was going to use these cubes as spacers so that you could grab the handle and put your fingers behind it and not squish your fingers and have enough room to pull the drawer out. So I went ahead and marked where the drawer holes already were for the handles previously on this dresser, and then went ahead and stained all 6 of the pieces and all the little cubes that would go with them. Once the stain was dry, I went ahead and took a wood screw and screwed into each of the 1" spacers, and then finished screwing all the way through to the handle. Once the spacers were in place, it was a lot easier to connect each handle in the right place as well. Now, each screw that I used was 1.5 inches long, and I used the Power Pro wood screws. They don't normally require any pilot holes, although I did drill some in the little spacers because they're so small, I was worried about cracking those. So you'll see me drill a little pilot hole in those, put the wood screws into each piece, and then connect the handle. I am using a little Loctite Power Grab glue as well in between the handle and the spacers. And that's it. It was a super simple way to retrofit this boring dresser and give it a lot of personality. It's got a little boho look to it in the design, or it could be farmhouse or modern, so I like its versatility, and it's just beautiful. The wood with the white really pops. As usual, I'll put everything I did and used in the description below. If you guys could like this video and subscribe, it helps me so much. And if you're looking to interact, you can hop over to my Instagram or TikTok, and I usually respond pretty quickly at either of those places. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.